morning, friends. This is Kim from Hancocks Homesteading Gardens, and I promised you all a tour of the cottage garden when I was finished weeding, and I'm just going to call it finished because I am tired of battling the rain this year. As you can see, I have my Virgin Mary. This is my center of meditation. I come out and do a little thinking, say a few prayers, try to figure out how to be a better Christian, a better mother, better grandmother, better sister, and it gives me some quiet time to my day. Around here I have some daylilies planted. These are, pardon me, daylilies. They're beautiful. They just kind of bloom all summer. And then I have a west side to my garden and an east side, and I have the same plants on each side, just in opposite positions, because I feel like it's a good idea to have the same colors and the same plants kind of flow throughout the garden to show continuity. So over here we have the zinnias, which you can actually now see. Those really need to be deadheaded. Back there's the coneflowers. You can now see them. The phlox. My dog decided to do a little digging this morning. Shame on you. There's my weed barrier so John can get up close without getting into the garden. And then over here on this side we have the same thing. We have the zinnias. We have the coneflowers. We have some phlox way down there. I need to get around them a little bit better. And then we have the menorah, the bee balm, which really needs to be deadheaded, and I forgot to mention it. Bee balm is a really nice plant to have in your cottage garden because it will bloom all summer. It's very hardy, and it really attracts your pollinators. The bees just love it, hence the name bee balm. Back in the very back there I have some sunflowers. These sunflowers were self-sown from the bird feeder this winter. And way down there is the bird bath with the ironweeds around it acting as my shrub. And no, the garden's not as pretty as I would like for it to look this year, but it is a new garden. And it's just starting out. I want to add more plants, make it fuller. Whenever you have more plants, you have less weeds. So that will be, you know, a goal is to get in these get these bare spots filled in. But that's the nice thing about a cottage garden is that they are informal. They're very informal gardens. So you don't have to be quite as particular about things. If you want to start a cottage garden, one of the first things I think you need is a picket fence, because picket fences and cottage gardens, they just go together, and that's because of the history. Cottage gardens were started over in England by farm wives. Didn't have a lot of land, and so they would use the land that they had available and scrunched every little vegetable and every little flower that they could find into this garden. And they would put picket fences around their gardens. And the reason for that, the reason for the pickets, is because they didn't want the deer to be jumping over the fences into their gardens. And so the pickets on the top were supposed to prevent the deer from jumping over and the other wildlife. But anyway, so that's the history behind the picket fence and the cottage gardens going together. But usually a cottage garden will have some kind of a fence, some kind of a structure. They also are known to have some kind of sculpture, some kind of yard art in them. And that's where my Mary comes in place. They're also known for their keep of the wildlife, so we have our bird feeders and our bird baths. And as you can tell, you don't really need a whole picket fence. We just kind of have ours running the front of our house here. The house is behind me, and this runs in the front. And between the picket fence and the house, we hope to someday put a path, a sidewalk. But we can only do one thing at a time, so I went ahead and started the garden anyway. That pump back there, it's been on this farm probably since the very first generation, 163 years ago, because, you know, they didn't have city water like we do now. In fact, when John and I first moved out here, we didn't have city water. And we had a cistern that would collect the rainwater, and then the cistern would run into the house where we didn't always have to run out and pump, but we did rely on the rain for our water. And there were years when we would have droughts and we would have to haul water from town. So off-grid living is fine, but I prefer to have my city water. I'm not going to lie about that. I've lived enough years having to drag water in that I don't mind having it right there available. When the time comes, I suppose I know how to do it without it, but for right now I'm living with my city water. Okay, so I hope that gives you a little idea of what my cottage garden looks like, and maybe a little bit of history behind a cottage garden.